Scythe, the digital edition. We're going to walk you through the tutorial, teach you how to play this amazing game. Please join us here on Legendary Tactics. Now, Scythe is a game that has a little bit of kind of rules overhead, I guess you could say. It's not really that hard to play, but there's a lot to keep track of, and it can be a little bit intimidating for a newer player. The tutorial here is, to be honest, not my favorite. There's a lot of kind of stuff thrown at you, but I'm going to try and walk you through as best you can. So we'll just start out with the goal of the game, which is to accumulate the greatest fortune, so to get money. And you get coins during the game, but as it says, there's a few other ways you can get them, from earning stars, from controlling territory, from controlling resources, okay? And the amount of coins you earn depends on your level of popularity. We'll show you how that works. It's kind of has a bit of a multiplier effect, I guess you could say. And if you keep your popularity high, you're going to earn more coins. So that's another factor to keep in mind. And sometimes you get some coins based on where you built structures as well. Now, there's a star system which is used basically to for scoring, but also to determine when the end of the game happens. And some people feel it can be a bit of a sudden ending sometimes, and that's perhaps true, but you always have to just keep it in mind that the game, is probably a little bit shorter than you expect. So you got to get as much done as you can. There's a whole list here of what you need to do in order to gain stars. I'm not going to really go over them all here, but I'll touch on them throughout the rest of the video for you, just so you can get a sense of what you need to do to earn these stars. All you need to know is that when you earn 6 stars, basically the game is over and you do final scoring when anyone in the game hits that level. So now there's a player mat, and I wish I could zoom in on it to give you an idea of what we're looking at here. I'll just kind of give you the rough guide here. If you see red, that means you're spending. If you see green, that means you're getting. And so each of these have symbols. You can see the little walking man, so that's obviously a move. This multicolored thing is resources of any type. The heart is popularity, you might remember from earlier. The action here, producing resources. There's getting combat cards and getting power. And I'll kind of touch on these. The tutorial does an okay job, I think, at explaining it, but it's a little bit involved. I'm glad I sort of learned the game already, because it's, I think, a little bit hard to just learn from this tutorial. So each turn you pick one of these columns. Basically, you do what they call a top row action, and then if you're able to, you can do a bottom row action. Okay, and each action is optional. You can skip it if you want. But basically, once you pick an action here, and early on in the game, you normally can't do the bottom row actions. It's normally something that you want to open up as soon as possible, but typically you're just going to have to worry about what they call the top action. And you can see there's kind of two choices here. We can pick the move action or the gain coin action. And so we're going to click on the gain coin action because that's what the tutorial says we need to do. And then we'll end our turn, and then that column is blocked off this turn, and we have to choose one of the other 3 columns next turn, and then this one will open up, and the one that we chose for turn 2 will be blocked. So it's a nice mechanic to make sure you're not just constantly moving or constantly producing. You got to switch it up. And so in this tutorial, they're saying, look, like, you've got 14 power, which is the military strength, and if you get to 16, if you see at the bottom here, then you will get a star, and that moves you closer towards victory. So here, this action is we spend 1 coin and we can buy 2 power. So when we do that, we get a star to congratulate us on getting to that milestone. Okay. Next, we'll move on to movement. As I said, as you can see, the tutorial seems to zip through things, and there's a bunch of information thrown at you. Best to have this game explained to you, I think, by either by myself, hopefully, or by a player when you're playing a live game, because it's, as I said, it's not really complicated, but there is a lot going on that you have to keep track of. So these are the 3 different types of units. You've got the character, the mech, which are pretty cool, and the worker. Okay, I'll just start with the workers. So the workers produce resources of whatever space they're in. They can deploy mechs, like build mechs basically, or build structures. So they're, as you might expect. The mech, they're the combat units, again, maybe as you might expect, and they can also carry these workers around, and potentially they can move a lot faster, so they can move and drop off workers, in different spaces. You can get around to different spaces to produce the resources you need. And then finally, the character, and this is basically your main character, in the game. They can engage in combat as well. They can gain the factory card, which is it's kind of a special bonus. You know how I mentioned those columns earlier? You get to add a fifth column that's based on moving into the center space of the entire board, and it gives you kind of some really cool actions that you can do as well. And you can have encounters, and these are going to be tokens on the board, at least when you're playing in the live game. They're little tokens where they open up a little narrative, and you get to choose an action and claim a bonus based on how you choose to act during that encounter. Okay, and again, they're throwing you information here, as I am. I'm hoping to kind of give some, organization to this, but they throw these different terrain types at you. So the first 5 you see here are the resources. So farm produces the food. Forest produces wood, steel is produced in the mountain, oil is produced in the tundra, villages produce people, lakes are spaces that are basically off, out of play. There are some exceptions which can happen during the game, I'll get into, but basically they're out of play. And the factory is that center space in the middle. You can see it right here, and that gives you that extra fifth, column card, part of your playmat that you can use. It's also important to notice these red tunnel shaped things. They are tunnels, and you can move instantly from one tunnel space to another. They are considered to be adjacent. So I think you'll find the movement in Scythe, especially early in the game, can be quite slow, and I think those tunnels are necessary to kind of make sure that people could get across the board to fight each other and stuff. So you control space if you have workers or mechs or your leader in the space, or if the space is empty of all of those and you have a structure, as long as they don't have any other enemy characters or mechs in there, then you control that space with the building, with the structure. All right, and this is our logo. It's a space. It's actually not a space on the board, but it's where units retreat to or where they start. So you can't build anything there. It's not an actual space, but it basically gives you a spot to restart or to potentially start from. So yeah, the resources, if you look here on the board, you'll see the different symbols. That's what's produced there. So if you have a worker there, for every worker there, when you choose a produce action, you produce one of that type. So they've got wood, food, metal, and oil. And they actually, another cool thing is actually they stay on the map. So you don't take them into your hand. You don't pick them up and hide them away. They're actually on the board. And so you can actually be attacked and lose them if you're not careful. So you got to make sure to shield your resources. It's kind of a neat idea. So here we're just going to demonstrate a movement. So the mech is going to load up the workers, as you might recall. We're going to choose the move column, and there's 2 things here. So that means we can move 2 units, whatever their movement range is. And basically, as you might remember, the mech can carry characters. They can carry workers and drop them off, and that's a very handy skill to have. And as it mentions here, the rivers, you need special abilities to cross them. That's something else. Again, there's so much. I apologize. There's so much to kind of like drop on you as far as the explanation goes, but that's just how this tutorial is structured. So anyway, I'm going to add all the workers onto the mech, and then we're going to move into this space and unload everybody just to demonstrate how that works. The character here, we can carry the food that is in the space. We'll load that up, and we'll use the tunnel. So you see how these 2 are adjacent. If you zoom back here, you can see how not only the adjacent spaces are potentially a candidate for being a space to move to, But the tunnel spaces are all adjacent as well. Notice the lake as well is not a space that the character can enter, and nor can they cross the river because of the limitations of their movement, which will be explained a little bit later. Basically, you need a mech ability in order to cross rivers and stuff. So, okay, so that is basically how you move, and it's fairly straightforward. But again, when you pile it onto all the other stuff we're learning about, there's a fair bit involved. So now, the next part up we're going to talk about is combat. Okay, and we got a Nordic bot there, so that's our enemy. And so combat is whenever you get characters or mechs entering into a territory that's controlled by another character or mech. You get, as I mentioned, or as you saw earlier, they had the power stat that we got to 16. Well, those are spent in combat. It's actually a very neat mechanic. Basically, you can spend up to 7 of those points that you've accumulated. So if you've accumulated 5 of them, you can spend all 5 or 4, 3, whatever amount you want. And you can also boost the, basically boost the combat with combat cards. And you can use as many combat cards as you have units in the battle. So they can basically, as you kind of this image suggests, you can boost with, 1 each of the combat cards. Whoever's the highest total wins the combat, and then you pay the power that you spent, and the combat cards are discarded. The winner gets the control over, or maintains the control over, the territory and any resources in that space. So as I said, you want to protect your resources. They can be stolen from you. And if it's one of the first 2 combats that you've won, you gain a star for each of the first 2. The losers have to retreat to their base. You remember that logo that I mentioned earlier? They retreat there. They have to restart there. They lose their combat card, but if they used any power or combat cards, and they spend their power as well, they get a combat card as compensation for the loss. So if you didn't spend a combat card and you didn't spend any power, you basically like conceded, then you don't get any bonus there. So let's take a look at the situation. Now the Nords have 10 power. We only have 1. So that's a problem. They're approaching us. Their mech is getting very close. So only up to 7 power can be used in combat, though, so we do have that to our advantage. They can't totally just blow us out of the water, with unrestricted power. So, and they don't have any combat cards. So what we're going to do, we have 1 power, 4 combat cards, and we can basically, if we can get the mech and the character both into play here, and we add two strength combat cards, that's going to be the value of our power 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it's not quite enough to beat the maximum 7 that we need to beat, but there is a power here. We can spend a coin and buy 2 power. It's called bolster power. Okay, and you can also bolster by buying a combat card, but the tutorial wants us to do this, so we're going to do that. And we gain 2 power, and now we are ready to go. We end our turn. They do their turn, blah blah blah, doing some resource stuff. Okay, now we're going to choose to move. We're going to move 2 pieces, and we're just going to move right into fight right here, charge right in. Okay, we click on the target to start the battle. So we're going to spend all 3 of our combat points. Okay, and then we need to put in both our combat cards, and then it's up to him. Now he can spend up to 7. The ties go to the attacker, though. So basically, we've won this fight. He's not going to spend very much, but he will spend a combat point. So when he loses, he gets a combat card as compensation. So that was good. We managed to wrestle control, and he goes back to start essentially, and we spend our combat points and cards that we spent. Now, what I like about this game that's really neat is if you go all in on a combat. Now, if you'll notice, we have 0 combat points. So that actually leaves us vulnerable to being attacked by others in future turns. So, you got to kind of balance this out. You got to make sure that you're not overspending on, on battles, because you may leave yourself vulnerable. You may score a glorious victory, But if you spend too many combat cards and too much combat strength, then you're basically it's almost like your energy is spent and you just can't possibly battle again, because you've you've run out of energy and you have to recharge before you can do it again. So anyway, as I said, they get a card as they retreat. Now, if you do walk into a space with workers and with a mech or with a character, they cannot attack, they cannot fight. And basically, they're forced to retreat if you, move in, and you lose 1 popularity per enemy worker forced to retreat by your attack. So you want to. It's good sometimes to chase the workers off, but it can hurt your popularity. Generally, not a popular thing to chase farmers off their lands. We're going now into the factory part, so you can see. They say it has untapped power. Yeah, I guess so. They got some pretty cool abilities. So when your character now it's the character. It's not a mech, but once your character enters the factory for the first time, then we get to look through the factory cards. We're going to choose the move action. We're going to move the character into the factory. Okay, we're going to end the move. And these are the 2 of the factory cards that we get to choose from. Now, normally there's more, or whatever. It depends on the number of players. But so this one, we can spend a power and gain 2 popularity. Okay, and the bottom part is we can actually do a special move, which is basically a bigger move. Here we pay a power and we gain 3 coins. So I kind of like gaining the popularity. So I'm going to take this one here, and it becomes part of the player mat. So here we have got the 5 sort of sections or columns of the player mat. And just like with any other move, if you play it into it, then you can't play into it twice. You have to move to a different column after that. But it does give you a nice boost. Now, it's also important to note that factory card is now permanent. If your character moves in and out of the factory space, it doesn't matter anymore. You've got you've made your choice. You have to live with it. That's important to know. So now we're gonna, we've got 1 power. So let's give it a go. Okay, so we gained 2 popularity, and we spent the power to do that. Now we have the bottom move. Now move 1 unit up to 2 times within the same movement action. So this, in other words, you can actually go, further. So we're gonna, take a look here. So now, if you'll notice, and this is something that might be hard to see on the digital version here of the game, but if you look here, see this little wheel cog star type thing? That is an encounter. Okay, so that is what I mentioned earlier when you move into the encounter space. It's a little bit of narrative. You get to choose. There's a situation, you get to choose how you want to react to it, and it gives you rewards based on that. It's a really neat idea. So you have to move into them with a character in order to, actually get that action. And we're going to take our factory move, which is a double move, and we get to take a look at this card. Now you get 3 options, and as to how you want to interact. Okay. Now, if you don't have popularity or coins to pay for certain options, those options just aren't available to you. Okay, this number up here is just the reference number if you need to reference. So here's a scene, and sometimes this is something we've done in the past is we get the person picking up the card to describe the situation. Just make something up, just add a bit of narrative to the game, and so it's a little more like a story playing out. So first choice is enjoy an afternoon festival with the commoners. You gain $2, 2 coins, and 1 popularity. That's nice. Now, if you enter a battle of wits and lose on purpose, you pay 2 coins and gain 2 power and 2 popularity. So do we have that many coins? I'm not sure if we do. Anyway, or we can drink too much and raid the storehouse. We give up 3 popularity, but we gain any 5 resources. So there's always a delicious kind of choice there as to which one. Do we play it safe? Do we take a hit, but we, you know, do we take that hit? Do we, you know, lose that popularity in exchange for that burst of resources? So we can choose one of the first two. I don't know why the tutorial is suggesting a peaceful option one, but maybe we'll just do that. So we gained a bit of, you know, popularity, a little bit of money. That's good. And so we are doing the right thing by people, which is awesome. So the encounter cards are going to add a little bit of flavor to the game. They're usually a great bonus. You usually want to run those down because they do give you a nice bonus. Okay, now that we're going to look at the bottom row actions. So again, you can see this one was like either move or take a coin. This one is spend a coin to get 2 resources, spend a coin to get a popularity. This is basically to produce. This costs you, because you've got enough workers on the board. I don't know if they'll explain this, but every time you choose to produce, it's going to cost you a power and a popularity, but you get to produce in all the spaces. And this is spend a coin for 2 power and or spend a coin for a combat card. So hopefully you're getting familiar with the different symbols now. So the bottom row actions are kind of interesting. So they have, you know, they're linking, first of all, the terrain type and what it produces. Okay, and we covered that a bit earlier. So the produce action, which is here. Oh, sorry, it's trade, sorry. So the produce action. Normally at the beginning, production is free, but basically as you get more workers on the board, it begins to cost you. Basically, it reveals certain extra costs to producing, and begins to hurt either your power, your popularity, that kind of thing. And so the more workers you have on the map, the more production you can do, but there's also a bigger penalty to pay. So now we can produce, let's choose that. And we can choose, we're going to choose the 2 metal icons here, because we've got 2 workers, so we produce 2 units of metal. And we can cut 3 pieces of wood or 1 barrel of oil. So let's do the 3 pieces of wood here. That seems like something that makes sense. Lots of resources. And the bottom row action is still out of reach. So you can see there's a cost here where it says 4 wood. We've only got 3 that we control. And same over here with 2 metal. We've only got 4 metal. Sorry, we only have 2 that we control. So another way of getting resources is to pay a coin and take any 2 resources that you like. So we're going to use this to buy some food, and we can put them in basically in any territory we like. Just for the sake of simplicity, we'll put it there, and we pay our coin and we get 2 resources of whatever type we like. Okay, now it's not going to let us, so we need 4 metal for that. We don't have the 4 metal, so we're just going to move on to the next tutorial, and they're going to show us hopefully about how to utilize those bottom row actions. The bottom row actions are, again, they're pretty powerful. One of them is quite simple, just, for example, allows you to build a mech or build a structure or, do things like that. So they're worth doing. And as soon as you can get to that point where you can use the bottom row actions, it's a good thing to work towards. Now, upgrading is one of the actions, which is really one of the things I love about Scythe. It's just such a beautiful mechanic. So basically, upgrading improves the efficiency and the infrastructure in your empire. So in this case, the resource we're going to be using to upgrade is oil. Okay, so you spend 3 oil, you get an upgrade. Okay, and what does that mean? Well, basically, you unlock an additional gain by moving 1 cube. In the physical game, it's a cube. You move the cube from 1 top half action to 1 bottom row action. Okay, or bottom action, and they give you more bonuses when you take a top row action, and they make the expenses of the bottom row action more affordable. So we're going to let's see, we control 3 oil in this scenario, so we're going to spend to do an upgrade, and so we're going to pay the 3 oil. Okay, and now we can we're going to improve the move action. So right now we can actually only move 2 units per turn. So we're going to take this cube from the top and we're going to put it down towards minimizing the cost of a mech. So normally now a mech costs 3 metal. We're going to make it 2 by moving the cube from top to bottom. So you can see now we've revealed a third unit that we can move, and we've cut the cost of the mech down to 2 metal. And so that's what an upgrade does. I think it's a really neat thing, and it can really, it really makes the game interesting, especially as you build towards a more efficient civilization. You can do some really cool stuff. So, and there's 6 total upgrades, and when you do all 6, you get a star. So now we can afford a mech. So we're gonna talk about mechs and how they get built. And I don't know if this whole zooming in thing was really necessary, but I guess it gives you a decent little idea of where things are at. So deploy is basically the purchasing a mech, and so you can protect your workers and expand your empire. So you spend metal, as we established, and every mech that you choose unlocks a new ability for your mechs and your character. You build a mech on any territory with a worker, not on the lakes, and mechs can transport workers, resources, and participate in combat. So they're very useful. They're going to be a very key part of your action. So if you look here, we control 2 spaces with metal, and the cost here is 3. So we're going to spend 3 metal, and then we can choose which mech we want to build. Now, there's no difference between the mechs themselves, but when they get deployed, they reveal an ability that then applies across all mechs and characters. So River Walk is probably one of the first ones you're going to look at. It allows you to move across rivers to forest or mountains. So it basically gives you the ability to cross the river at a certain space on the board. For example, you can see forest here. So this would allow crossing at this point in the river. There's a few other abilities like, gaining extra speed, extra 1 hex per movement, or move between any mountain you control and any tunnel. So they got some neat abilities that differ according to the faction that you play. But Riverwalk is a common one. You're going to want to generally take that one first. And we're going to place the mech where the workers are, right here. And that is the turn. Now we're going to use the movement to do a river walk, and so we're selecting the mech, and I don't think we want to load up the workers. Maybe we do. Oh, it doesn't let me. Okay, no worries. So I'm going to choose the mech, and we're going to cross the river. You see, it won't let me cross here. Okay. But it lets me go basically from to cross the river towards the forest and mountains. So basically we're going to, or I guess it should allow me to go there, but anyway, I think this is just the tutorial guiding me here. So, and the character also gets the upgrade. So we're going to select the character, and then you can see crossing into the forest. You're allowed to do that and show off the river walk. So yeah, so you're going to want to adjust your strategy based on your faction and the abilities that your mechs will give you. Okay, there shouldn't be, there's not really a lot more to it, but we'll just cover things. Again, I know it's going pretty fast and you probably, have questions, but I think once you get into it, you'll see that there's actually, it does make a lot of sense. There's a lot of, a lot of it is fairly intuitive once you get kind of the lingo. So building structures is another option. It's another bottom half action. And they again reveal abilities, or they each have different shapes. They're different types of structures, and each structure gives you a different bonus. Basically, they do also reveal a potential bonus in the top or bottom row as well. So basically, you need to spend wood to build them, and you pick any structure type linked with a top action. It has to be a worker has to be there to build it, but not on the lake. And you can only build one structure on each territory. and the bonus is triggered whenever you take the assigned top action. So you'll see how this works here. So there are the mine and the armory have already been placed. I'm not sure why they didn't let us build them, but okay. So the mine here, you see this like tunnel-like structure. I'll try and zoom in here. This is kind of like your own personal tunnel. So you know how the tunnels were all adjacent? This is like your own personal tunnel that only you can use. So we'll give that a try. We're going to put the character there, and you'll see when I zoom out here that all the spaces are all now adjacent. So you can make up some good distance there. We're just going to hop over to this spot. Why? Because there's some unattended resources there that we have now captured them. So we're going to leave the workers where they are. So we're going to end the move. Just looking at back here. Okay. And that is it for the turn. Then we're going to spend a coin and gain some popularity. Now this is associated with the armory. And again, I wish they would let us zoom in on the board just to give you a better idea. But basically, thanks to the armory, that one's associated there. Oh, see, I see where it is there. Okay. So the armory means that if you take this top half action and you have that armory in place, then you gain a power by doing that. So that is, kind of an automatic kind of thing. Now we took over this space. We have some wood available to us now, so we can build another structure. Okay, so that is what we're going to do. Now we can take both the top and the bottom action. We're going to spend the wood, and now we can choose the windmill. Okay, and the windmill goes, let's say here. Just has to have a worker on it to build it. Okay, and the mill is ready. And the mill basically improves the economy. Okay, so if we pick this action here, the mill grants you 1 extra territory to produce, and it produces as if it were 1 worker. So that's a cool feature. So we're gonna take that, for example, and we produce 2 workers where otherwise we would have only produced 1. But the windmill gives us that extra. That extra bonus there. So, okay. And again, only 1 structure per territory. If you have a structure that's taken over by an opponent, then don't worry, they cannot use your structure. Okay. But it does stop working if it is not under your control. Okay. They cannot be destroyed. They cannot be moved. You can build on the factory territory if you want to, but not on lakes or bases. Okay, and so again, lot throwing at you here, but once you get in the flow, it does make sense. I promise you, especially with the board game. I honestly think this is a good implementation of the game, but I don't know if I'd want to learn on this kind of to practice. I think if you got the board in front of you, as I said, you can look at your player card, player mat much more closely and get a real sense of how it's working and so forth. Now we're going to go into the enlist action, which is a little bit tricky. Okay, basically it gives you passive income whenever opponents perform bottom actions. So this requires you to pay attention to your neighbors. Okay, so if the player to the left, player to the right, basically takes a bottom action, then you get a bonus that is associated with that bottom row action. Okay, so in addition to that, when you enlist, you do get a one-time bonus. So basically, it's almost like an upgrade. You move 1 token from one spot to another. So when you open up the enlist bottom row or bottom half action, you place it on one of these 4. So you can it's a one-time bonus. You get either 2 power, 2 coins, 2 popularity, or 2 combat cards. Okay, so, and then, as I said, whenever one of your neighbors, not person across the table from you, but to your left, to your right, takes a bottom action which matches yours, then you get just a little extra bonus. So hopefully that was clear. I'll try and maybe touch on it again. So what we do is, so in this case, we chose the bottom action here, okay, to enlist. And pay attention to the opponent's combat cards. They've already got their recruits enlisted, and they're going to benefit from our choice of that particular action. Okay, and we're going to pay for that with 3 food. Okay, and we're going to choose the ongoing bonus. So this is the one that is you get as a residual or passive income if your neighbors do a particular action. So we're going to choose this particular one. Okay, we're going to choose the option to take 2 coins. And once you have put your enlist marker on that, it's blocked and you can't take it again. You can choose one of the other 3 though, and then until they're all used up. So the neighbors gained a bonus. In the 2-player game, you may only gain that. The rules are a little bit different for a 2-player game, obviously. But recruits are nice because they can give you that passive income, and the earlier you enlist them, the more you benefit. And this is, again, there's so many things to think of. Do I enlist? Do I get that residual bonus? Do I, do I build a structure? Do I build a mech? What's the best thing to build? There's a lot of considerations in the game that you need to, to pay attention to. And I hope this kind of walkthrough helps. I hope I'm adding enough to it so that it makes more sense. In addition to all this stuff, you also get dealt 2 objective cards, 2 objectives that are kept secret from the other players. Now, you can only achieve one of them, okay? But if you achieve them, then you get a star, okay? So in this case, if you control 3 tundra territories at the end of your turn, then you get you've completed the objective, you get that star. It's you get the completed, but the other one cannot be completed then if that's the case. You can only finish one or the other. Okay, so the tutorial has an idea, might require a special ability. Now your factions have abilities as well, and so this faction's ability is to swim, that your workers may move across rivers. Normally they cannot. They have to be carried by, say, a mech. Okay, so you can move across rivers into any type of terrain except for lakes, and it only applies to workers, not character or mechs. So if you want to get your mechs across the river, you're going to have to build a mech with the river walk ability, and then everyone gets that ability to cross the river. It is kind of a bit of a weird thing with Scythe, is that you start out kind of trapped in basically 3 squares until you build a mech and or get another ability that allows you to actually get across the river. Now with the Nordics, they're obviously, they can get their workers across. They don't need to have the river walk, which means they can build a mech that's already across the river and so forth. So anyway, it's just as I said, yet another thing to think about. So everyone's in position. So we mark so we control at least 3 village territories, because here our character is controlling one. Okay, so if you're wondering why 3, those are the 3. And now we collect our star. This one here is now obsolete. No point in going for it at that point. So that's another couple things to think about. As I said, if I were just walking through this tutorials, on my own, trying to figure this out, I'd be pretty confused by now. But I'm hoping to, kind of fill in these gaps here with a bit of explanation. So now we are only 1 star away from ending the game. Okay, but when you get the 6th star, it doesn't mean you win. It just means the game goes into final scoring. So you're going to want to time the end of the game as best you can around you being in a good position at that moment. Other players are going to be doing the same. So there's going to be a bit of jockeying, and sometimes it's really tough to actually avoid, getting those stars sometimes. And you want to have as much money as you can. So this is the last part of the tutorial. So let's just check the structures. Okay, now one of the ways that you can get a star is by building all the structures. And so let's take a look, and it looks like we have 2 buildings on the tunnels here. So let's look at the scoring cheat sheet here. Okay, so this is our luckily with the app, one of the advantages is that it will add up your score. So you've got coins in hand, you've got some stars. They're worth 5 coins each. The territories are worth 4 coins each, and resources, we don't have enough of those. So we've got that amount. Now based on your popularity, and you can see they have maxed out our popularity, each of these are going to be worth different amounts. Okay, so because our popularity is so high, each star is worth 5. If we're unpopular, they're only going to be worth 3. And if we're in the middle, we get 4. Resources, because we're super popular, we have 18 popularity, they're worth 4 each. If we were super unpopular, they'd only be worth 2 each. And same with resources 1, 2, and 3. So they act almost like a multiplier of sort. Basically, it's you want to have the most popularity so that you can benefit the most from each of the different categories. The Nordic player is very unpopular, so they're in this category. They only get 3 per star, 2 per resource pairs, 2 per territory, and 1 per resource pair. Sorry, I think I misspoke earlier. So anyway, that's kind of the idea, is that you can be doing really well in combats and winning, getting lots of stars, but ultimately if your popularity is low, your scoring is going to be limited. So it's kind of an interesting balance here between all the different factions, all the different factors you have to take into account. So all right, so here's the end game plan. Gain control over the factory. That gives us more territory control. Move a worker to a free tunnel. That's more territory control. Building a mill. Okay, and that should be just enough to win. So let's see if we can pull that off. So we're going to move this worker to the factory. And the other one here, we're going to move to, because there's that structure there. Remember, that's our own personal tunnel, so we can zip over here. There we go. All right. And by the way, all the structures are all the same for all the players. The costs for everything is always different, but the structures themselves give the same bonus. So, all right. And now we're going to build. We're going to pay the required wood. Now notice we don't have any workers or mechs or anything in this territory, but because we have a structure, we still are considered to be in control of it. If the enemy moves in a piece, though, we will lose control. The structure can't hold it on its own. We're going to pick the final construction here. We're going to place on the tunnel. And yay, we get the last star. Oh, yes, I guess we were the Nordic player. Again, I misspoke. So then they run through the final scoring here. And even though the Polonia player was way more popular, again, you got to look at the different options. And we managed to squeak out the win. Just barely, by 1. Isn't that a coincidence? So there's a little bit of fireworks and so forth. So, and then they got the score breakdown. Sorry, I mixed up the players there, but we managed to pull out the win, and that is the end of the tutorial. So I hope that helped you out. The interface, the app itself is great. It does require a little bit of learning the interface, though, in my experience. I've played Scythe many times, but I was very confused the first time I opened up the tutorial and trying to find everything. As I said, if you can, I would learn on the actual game with the physical components. I just feel it's a lot easier to learn that way. However, this being the crazy times that we live in, it may be hard to get an opponent to play with, or maybe hard to get out and get a copy of the game. So if you have to use this, I hope that it helped. I hope that my walking through it and talking through it a little bit gave a bit of clarity, and hopefully you're going to give this game a chance. It is a great game. It is well worth your time, and I really recommend it. So make sure you invest the time and effort of learning it. And then once you've learned it, then you can invest the time and effort in learning how to play well, which is a whole different thing entirely. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it if you've stuck through it this far. And if you did like this video, please, click on subscribe and like down below. Thank you so much for watching. My name is Nato. I'm with Legendary Tactics, and we will see you next time.